the legal profession, and I'm sure in your various conversations you must have heard how it is at an inflection point, and all of this has been drastically pushed forward because of uh, the pandemic, as we all know, where almost instantly everybody who is a stakeholder in the legal profession had to very, very rapidly change how they function. But even apart from that, there have been a lot of other factors that are driving change within the legal profession. And I think one of the things that is definitely making this change is how our clients have changed and what their demands have changed, and what they require now has completely changed as compared to what it was 20 years from now. So one of the things that's definitely driving the change to be more cost efficient is increased overhead costs that have happened because real estate costs have gone up, and costs of administration and other organizational costs that usually are there in a law firm or even in a solo setup have really gone up because of various factors globally. So that is one. There is also increased associate compensation. So we've all heard of the great resignation in one way or the other. And the legal industry is not has not been immune to that change because a lot of people are moving away from the profession. And because of which there is an associate compensation war that's going on right now, where there is cross poaching, and all of that has led to very, very high numbers in terms of remuneration that associates get these days. Then you have increased cross pressures from clients. So all legal departments over the years, and especially during the pandemic, had a lot of pressure to cut down their legal costs or costs of external consultants or external lawyers or external law firms. And because they had some kind of limitations on what they could and could not do, they have sort of carried that forward to the law firms, demanding for lower fees on every mandate that they're engaging with the law firm. So that's another reason of change. And the last reason of change is decreased realization rates and longer realization cycles, by which I mean that let's say even if you did agree on your standard fee arrangement with a client, the amount of write-offs that you're now giving are a lot higher than they were a few years back. And not only that, even realizing that amount from the client now takes a lot longer as compared to earlier, because clients themselves have also faced various kinds of cash balance and imbalances, and there are other factors that are aligned to this. So all in all, law firms and lawyers right now need to work in the most cost efficient way, but none of that can ever come at the cost of what your services look like and how well you're being able to serve your clients. And this is where the you can use technology to improve how you're servicing your clients, while also ensuring that your costs stay in place, right? So technology increases efficiency, and a good example of this is you can look at low level tasks and try to automate it, or you can look at things which are very, very mundane and redundant and try using technology to take over that smaller part of your practice completely over. And this doesn't always have to be about the law. This can be something as simple as administrative functions, like you now have something called Ruby, which is like a virtual reception assistant. So you can have this service sort of completely take over your reception requirements, and they will take your calls and they will deal with the clients on the back end. So it can be something as simple as that. It reduces cost. Why does technology reduce cost? Because it is able to do the same amount of work at a much lesser cost as compared to what you're probably paying an associate for the same amount of time. So in that sense, there is a lot of reduction of cost that you can directly get by leveraging technology. It also reduces human error, and that's something that a lot of people don't really agree to the first time that I have a conversation with them. But if you really think about it, if you sit back and think about it, there is, I'm not saying that this will, use of technology will be 100%. There are always chances of error, and a lot of error accrues from the kind of data you're giving to the technology or how the technology um, is actually functioning. But still, in terms of sheer percentage, the the amount of human error that happens on a day in day out basis goes completely untracked, on a lot of bases, whereas in terms of technology that can really be improved. And it really just boils down to this, right? Would you rather uh, trust the judgment of a lawyer who is, burning the midnight oil and is in on the 14th hour or the 15th hour of working and is doing a due diligence? Or would you rather trust a software that has been trained properly, um, and that will never have something called human fatigue, right? So that technology, if used properly, has a lot of potential to reduce human error. And just overall, you can really improve customer experience. And a great way to look at our profession, and we can have a lot of learnings from, is the financial sector, where they have really leveraged fintech to improve how customers interact with financial institutions and banks. Like, I don't need to all the time call my bank for updates, or call the manager for what's happening to my money or what's happening to my bank accounts. I have a dashboard there. I have chatbots that help me out with the most usual FAQs I have all the time. And just generally, the kind of innovation that's happening in that sector, a lot of learnings can be directly applied to the legal profession as well. Um, like I said earlier, there is a lot of change in what clients also want their lawyers to do, right? So, of course, one of the biggest factors that they sort of focus on is to understand the client's businesses, which now lawyers have already started doing. Lawyers are now no longer only advising on the law, they're also looking very, very closely at how the business is moving. And they are now more of your business advisors as well, and not just your legal advisors beyond a stage. But another thing that clients are focusing on heavily is also technology, how digital the lawyer or the law firm is, and how much they are leveraging the new ways in which technology is changing. Another thing to sort of really understand here is that a lot of the clients themselves have become very, very technologically advanced, right? Because if you look at the legal departments of any of the bigger companies or any of the MNCs, they're already using a lot of tools and a lot of technology in how they work, and they have streamlined a lot of processes themselves. And I'm not just saying legal tech, even generally, right? There is a lot of technology that they're using a lot of SAP systems, they're using a lot of project management tools that have really helped them improve efficiency. But when they look to a traditional lawyer or a traditional law firm, they don't see the same kind of efficiencies uh, existing, and that sort of has it sort of reduces the trust and the faith that they may have in a traditional lawyer and a traditional law firm system. A, and B, not only that, they don't really see full value for money in those systems. So right now, a lot of times the clients are sort of pushing the lawyers or the law firms to use new kind of technology, or to improve how they're running processes, and or to use technology that they sort of mandates them to use. And a lot of companies have actually done it. So HP now, for a lot of its matters, requires their lawyers and law firms to use a system that HP uses to track its overall, cases and expenditure and all of that. So those kind of changes have already happened, and this had happened way before the pandemic, which has only increased because of remote working over time. Um, so I have talked a lot about technology, and there is a lot of usually there is a lot of apprehension and there is a lot of confusion about what legal technology really means. So, legal tech is basically any technology that helps you practice law in a better way to improve client service delivery and improve the product that you're actually going to eventually give to the client. And uh, this is all, in that sense, more focused on the lawyer. It can also mean anything on the client side, which can be, does it improve the client's access to legal expertise or legal services or justice? And this can even be um, a function of using reduced lawyers or no lawyers at all. So for there are now a lot of technologies in both the spaces. Another thing that commonly happens is that legal tech and law tech is almost used very, very interchangeably. But for the sake of specific segregation, the first kind of technology which is serving the lawyers is called legal tech. And the second kind of technology which is helping the customers, for example, chatbots or online legal marketplaces that help you find a lawyer, all of that is called law tech, though they're used interchangeably very, very often. Um, All right. So, what is legal tech and what are the kind of technologies that exist that can help you improve how you're working day in, day out, improve how you interact with the client, improve how you're getting data and analysis, uh, and automate or improve your workflows? So there is a lot of technology that is already available. This is a dated chart. It's from 2020. But as you can see, it sort of tries to put things in buckets, right? You have technology that is talking about smart contracts, which are contracts backed by blockchain. There is communication and collaboration technology. These are mostly in the in various ways help you communicate much more promptly and much more directly with clients and with internal teams. So both. And they can look like, for example, it can look like a client dashboard, right? Where the client can go see the status of all its matters, see the billing cycle, see if there's an upcoming date or a hearing, or if there's an upcoming bill that's going to be due, or if there is some input you need from the client, etc., etc. Then you have document analysis, and these are basically applications that help you improve how you work with your documents on a day in, day out basis. The kind of analysis it does can have a very, very wide range. For example, some document analysis software may allow you to track and find out what are the most commonly negotiated terms in, let's say, an investor term sheet, right? What is it that gets negotiated the most and what is it that gets marked up the most? Um, to doing something as simple as just ensuring that all your documents are in place, are cross-referenced, you're able to run better analysis on top of those documents in terms of how many shifts are there, what is going to become overdue, what is going to become expired, etc., etc. Then you have workflow tools, and these are basically tools that help you um, identify processes and then improve those processes by using technology at the back end. Then you have e-discovery, which is used for litigation, and basically is are softwares that help you look at documents and in a sense help you do run diligence on documents. Then you have timesheet and billing software. This is software which may allow you to time track automatically, may allow you to create dummy timesheet entries, may allow you to screenshot activity. So there are a lot of ways in which that can work. There is an entire gamut of security and compliance. Then there is document management, which we seem to have been a very, very major issue when we hit the pandemic because lawyers were running around in circles trying to find documents. A lot of it was still hard copy. And in that sense, having everything digitally, managed digitally, and then on the cloud seems to be the latest norm that most lawyers and law firms are going from. And it also allows you to work real time virtually, irrespective of your geography and location, and also allows you to have everything in one place, which is clinically sorted. Document management also allows you to improve how your knowledge management is functioning, which is to say, it's easier to find precedents, it's easier to communicate on that, it's easier to keep track of what the latest laws are, etc., etc. So there can be a lot of direct applications of this. Now, case management and transaction management apply to transactions and disputes respectively. And effectively, they try to take care of everything ranging from the initial point, which is the client intake, when the client reaches out to you, then the entire process of the matter, um, and tracking the matter and all the other work that you would eventually do on the matter, and then the eventual billing, timesheet analysis, sending bills to the client, recoveries. Some will deal with the entire gamut of it, and some might deal with certain aspects of it, but it really depends on the solution that you choose to take in. Then you have document automation. So document automation is basically, we all work on precedents, right? And to that end, every time, and let's take a very, very simple example. Almost every company or every initial conversation requires an NDA, and a lot of times, a lot of time is wasted on just creating a new draft of an NDA. What document automation allows you to do is effectively have the precedent sit on the back end. All you have to do is sort of answer a set of questionnaire, and the software will generate the NDA for you. It's usually based on that. And of course, I've taken a very simple example of an NDA, but document automation can allow you to create some very, very complicated documents as well, including a master supply agreement and all the agreements that lie below it. And it reduces a lot of manual labor. It reduces a lot of human error and the potential of human error that exists. And it ensures that all your documents, the first draft at least that is generated, are completely in sync. So it takes away the entire requirement to, run around, ensure if the precedent or the base document you're using, if it's the latest one, not the latest one. So all of those incongruencies can go away because of it. BI tools are business intelligence tools are things that are not being used so much by law firms in India at the moment. So they're basically tools that allow you to look at data and make better data driven decisions, right? So a good example of this can be to look at how you to look at all the bills maybe that may have been raised in the last quarter for you, to look at how what is the kind of write-off or what is the kind of discounting that you may have done for clients, and then trying to break that down further to see how or what are the factors or what are the kind of write-offs you usually have, and then letting that data drive your decision to improve how you're doing things. So for example, a lot of clients may ask you to write off a lot of time that has been spent by your lawyers on due diligence, right? And if you think that that is not like that is making the mandate uh, inefficient in terms of pricing, or it makes the matter non-profitable, then you know that that is an area that you need to very, very actively work on. And that can range from maybe outsourcing how the diligence is done, or looking at tools that can help you automate some parts of diligence, etc, etc. So you can have, like, there is a lot of application to how data can run here, and how data can help you improve how you're advising your clients, and um, how the kind of value you bring to your clients also. So there is all of this talk about, oh, this is what legal tech can do, these are the kind of tools, why do you need it? um, but how do you really get started, right? Because that's the question I get uh, in the at the first end, because everybody understands that yes, technology is important, we need to get it, but what do we really do? So one of the first things that uh, we do as a process is to ensure that whatever you're doing is documented. So we call that process, we call that entire actionable process mapping, which is to say, okay, I will sit today and I will see what are the various steps of client intake, and who all are involved in the client intake process. And it can start from, okay, the client calls you or the client emails you, and that's the trigger point. Then it may go to your ERP, or it may go to your secretary, and whatever the secretary does to take information, what are the information points that are coming in, etc, etc, etc. Then a matter is generated on your system, right? And then whatever follows. The idea behind doing this of mapping processes is that then you can start to standardize your process, because it is possible that one team is doing client intake a certain way and the other team is doing client intake a certain way. This can help you standardize, and this can help you scale up that process. The second thing you can do after mapping processes is to find the things that are redundant or that are wastes. It is possible that you're asking for the same information from the client two times, right? It's possible you take the client's PAN card in a photocopy, or their GST number as a photocopy. And it's possible that at later point of time, you're again asking them for that information, but over email. So you can look at the process map and actually find areas of improvement where you can, streamline the process. The third thing that this can help you do is to find spots in the process that can be automated, right? Going back to the GST or the PAN card example, it will come to you as a scan. That there are now tools that can help you read the scan, which are called OCR, or optical character readers. So there is a tool which can read the photo of the PAN card and extract the PAN card number in a text form. I can basically remove manual intervention from this entire step by automating the process and reducing the time. And even though it seems like what's the harm, right? It's like a 5-second process for each client. But over time, these 5 seconds, 5 seconds, 5 seconds add up. And that is where your efficiency is going to come from eventually. The second thing that anybody who's trying to get started should do is to look at whatever your current technology is, right? And I'm not even talking about hyper specific legal technology or technology that's only serving a particular purpose for lawyers. I'm even talking about your absolute basics, right? Everybody has Microsoft O365. What all do you have in Microsoft O365 that you can use better to improve your processes? And just FYI, this entire thing that I told you about uh, automating uh, the client intake in terms of information, and OCR, and improving the client intake form and your backend information, all of this thing can be done completely within the Microsoft O365 ecosystem without you spending a single rupee on top of what you already have. So it's very, very important to know what is the potential with the technology you already have. And more often than not, all these smaller things can be sorted by using what you already have. And there are a lot of benefits to it apart from just cost, right? Because I will be a lot more comfortable using a technology I've used all my life than moving to a new technology completely. So that change management also becomes a lot easier. And that also improves how people are thinking and how much adoption you eventually have of the technology. The second thing, the second step is identifying areas of improvement, which is what I've already spoken about, right? Once you've mapped processes and once you have a sense of the technology you have and the potential that your current technology has, you can then sit down and look at areas that you want to improve and also look at how you can improve the usage of your current technology. The third thing is that once you've identified areas of improvement, and let's say your current technology stack doesn't work, or if you want to look, or if it doesn't serve the purpose, then you look for a tool or a solution online, and then sort of get into the entire engagement of seeing what kind of tools exist, what are other law firms doing, what are other vendors offering, does it fit, does it not fit, do I have a budget, then all of those considerations really come into being. But my personal advice is, don't jump the gun, because I've seen a lot of people do it. They go directly to step 3, which is, oh, there is a new e-signature software, let's get it. It will never work like that, because you will spend that money, you will get that software, and then it will just become shelf software, because you did not define your problem statement correctly, and you did not take input and take feedback from what is really required. And that's why a lot of people have bad experiences with adoption of technology. So please avoid doing that. And the last thing is, once you've identified the tool and solution, you've got the budget, you've finally thought about purchasing the tool. And even while you're thinking about purchasing the tool, please don't make it a siloed decision, right? Talk to people, let the people who are going to eventually use it run the pilot or run the trial. Let them give you feedback, let them tell you what is working, what is not working, because it is eventually them, it is your other lawyers or your other members of the law firm or your organization that have to eventually use it. So do not make that decision in a siloed fashion. And the last is to deploy and manage change, right? And I will deal with this a little more towards the end of the presentation. But your job doesn't end at purchasing the tool. It actually kind of starts, the actual battle starts after you purchase the tool and you're trying to deploy it within your system, because you're asking people to change how they work completely. And like I said, I'm going to just deal with it a little further down the line. So, in the entire process, right, what are the kind of things, or what are the common errors that a lot of people do when they're trying to get technology within their organization or within their entire setup? One thing that a lot of people do is ad hoc acquisition of technology, right? They do not buy technology as part of a bigger mission or a bigger scheme. They get random pockets of technology and then try to make all of it work together, which it never will. So, this entire thing where you're trying to transform your organization, think of it as a big puzzle, as a big jigsaw puzzle, right? Each piece of technology that you bring in, or each piece of change that you're trying to bring in, has to sit together eventually and make like a bigger picture. You can't have random pieces of different jigsaws and then try to bring them all together, because that will never work, and that will lead to eventual failure of your entire effort, and that will also lead to a lot of frustration with the lawyers and whoever you're trying to uh, whoever your eventual users of technology are. The second thing is redundant processes, which is to say that your process already has a lot of wastages, has a lot of redundancy, has a lot of repetition, has overprocessing, has all of those issues within the process. Now, if you put technology on top of it, technology is not going to be able to solve the issues that you have on a base level process. It will, in fact, amplify those issues. And that you see happening very often with, let's say, you recently got a new piece of technology which is supposed to keep your documents in place, right? Let's say you got a new DMS. But all of these years, lawyers have been keeping folders the way they wanted, keeping files the way they wanted. Some is scanned, some is not scanned, yada, yada, yada. Your processes are all over the place. Suddenly telling the lawyers that no, you will use this document management system and you can't save things locally on your system or doing any other kinds of processes, right? To push the change is only going to amplify the issues you have. So so you need to ensure that you do not have redundant processes, because only then will the technology be able to help you. A third thing that um, a lot of organizations do is that they completely discount legacy technology. All of us have some kind of technology that already sits with us, right? You may have a timekeeping software, you may have, some document management system. Uh, you may have something a little more advanced. Maybe you have um, a due diligence software or whatever else, right? But whenever you're getting new technology, you need to ensure that all of these things sort of speak to each other and are not redundant or are not at conflict with each other. Because otherwise, you will always have issues with proper integration and proper adoption of the new technology that you're trying to bring in. And it all goes back to the earlier thing I said about, a jigsaw puzzle. Everything has to sit together, has to talk to each other for it to really be successful and for it to be adopted and for it to really make a change. Another thing that we don't do very, very often is that you don't have buy-in. And I don't mean buy-in only at a management level. I mean buy-in at more of an organizational level. And I understand that it may be difficult for bigger organizations, but one of the key things that you need to ensure is that your end user knows what you're trying to do, what is the problem you're trying to solve, and knows what is in it for them. So not only is like management buy-in important or key decision maker buy-in important, but you need to have buy-in from all stakeholders sitting at all stages of your organization. A fifth thing, and this um, is something that has become more relevant because clients have become more demanding, as I had said before, is when you don't take inputs from clients, right? You deploy a new technology, but at the end of that technology, you may have to interact or interface with the client as well, right? And taking inputs from client on what you're trying to do, what you're trying to change, and what is your eventual vision and mission here, not only improves your communication with the client, it also improves the trust that the client has in you because they are now also committed in your entire transformation journey. And for all you know, your clients may already be more mature in terms of digital adoption and can actually help you and guide you in making the right decisions and avoiding the mistakes that they made. Um, and um, Not only that, at the end of the day, we need to keep in mind that as a law firm, you are servicing the client and everything you do is eventually for the client. And therefore, it's very, very important to keep the client at the center of your entire strategy because everything is to improve their experience with your law firm. Okay, now this is more about change management, which is the common things that you keep hearing, right? Like, why are lawyers not really wanting to change? Or I got the technology, but nobody's using it, or what's happening? So, there is a very famous paper that Dr. Larry Richard wrote. It's fairly old, it was written in the early 2000s, where he's basically comparing managing lawyers to herding cats. And he's done a um, like a trait analysis on a psychological basis to see what are the traits that lawyers have that are higher than the average public. And you will see that a lot of these things are usually things that will, um, you know, that will take a lot more convincing and a lot more buy-in from all your members and all your lawyers for adoption of technology. Lawyers tend to be very, very skeptical. Um, they have a high sense of urgency. A high sense of urgency basically means that you'll hear the lawyers are always busy. They tend to be resilient to change, and they tend to be very, very autonomous, which means that if the partner tells them you need to do this, and beyond a point of time, if they don't see the benefit to them or the benefit to the matter or the benefit to the client, it's very unlikely that they will change how they have been working so far. So, what are the common challenges, right, when you're trying to um, have the change come in? You'll hear lawyers are very busy people, right? I mean, they don't have the time to learn a new technology. They don't have the time to change how they've been working. They're always hard pressed for time, and work will always come first. Uh, the second is it's always harder to learn a new way of doing something, right? You're so used to your mechanism, you have a process, your senior has a process, your junior has a process, and it's very, very difficult to move away from that. Third thing is technology solves some problems but doesn't solve all of lawyers' problems. And the fourth is there isn't enough, successful examples. There aren't enough successful examples out there to influence the adoption because we all sort of hear of just horror stories and wasted expenses on technology, etc., etc. So one of the things that I recently found out, and it's something that you should keep in mind, and it's something that I've spoken about before, right, is to keep your problem statement very, very simple. Start from the ground level. See what is the simplest thing you can fix. Don't think of getting AI. Don't think of getting machine learning. Don't think of getting NLP. Uh, don't think of getting, uh, something which is very, very complicated. Start small, start with smaller things, build up the trust, build up the buy-in that you have, right? Because after a point of time, lawyers will start seeing the benefits of using technology and changing the ways they've been working. Because at the end of the day, no lawyer wants to work for 80 hours a week, right? They're all trying to get their peace of mind as well. But that trust has to be built. And the chart here sort of talks about what is the most used technology solutions by UK legal buyers. And this is something that Thomson Reuters did uh, like about 10 days back. And you will see that the most used technology solutions are the most common and low hanging fruits, right? E signature tools or legal research tools or practical know how, e billing, compliance tools. These are all very, very simple tools that don't take a very long time to get integrated, don't take a lot of time to teach your lawyers because they already know how to use it. And don't take a lot of time for the change to happen. If you look at the lower half, you see, right, contract AI or legal workflow automation or legal project management or IT management, which are all things that come at a much later stage after you have sorted out your basics. All right. One of the things and one of the key questions that you have to and must always, always answer while getting new technology is that why should a lawyer care about the new technology you're bringing in? And that itself can ensure that the way you're managing change and the way you're driving adoption changes completely. So if I get a new piece of technology, how does it affect a paralegal? How does it affect an associate? How does it affect a partner? How does it affect a reviewing associate? And if you're able to answer those questions, right, you will be able to really drive up the adoption because then you will get their trust, you will get their buy-in, and you can convince them and you can actually tell them that, this is why you need to use this. And not because I am telling you or not because it's a organizational mandate, but also because this really, really impacts and improves how you work. So yes, when you're trying to manage change and you've got the adoption in, these are the kind of things you definitely need to focus on. One is training and support, because a lot of times there is technology that is sitting within your system, but uh, most lawyers don't know that it exists. And if it exists, most lawyers don't know what to do with it or how to work on it. So training and support becomes very, very important. And it is time and effort that everybody needs to definitely put in. The second is incentives and gamification, right? Which sort of goes back to why should they care? But not only that, it also can be in other ways, right? You can have something called like you can have a special bill entry, a timesheet entry, which a lot of law firms have done, called experimentation hour, or you know, you can have a separate set of people who are willing to try out new tools and give you feedback. So you can always gamify and incentivize this entire process. The third is third is listen to feedback, right? You need to be very, very open to listening to what your own people are saying. Because if they're telling you this doesn't work, or this is too much friction, or I don't want to move away from Word to another kind of software, then come back to Word, then listen to it and try improving on it, because that will improve your decision making going forward. Find peer champions and do a phased rollout. So don't get a technology for the entire firm and be like, okay, from tomorrow, we're changing everything and this is what we're going to use. Find people who have the buy-in. Find people who are already trying to adopt more technology, because they will be the people who will eventually drive the change, right? If I am using a technology, I'm very likely to tell my colleague about it. I'm very likely to tell them when they are struggling what they can do better to make their lives better. And the second part of this is do a phased rollout, right? Do it team by team, section by section, hierarchy by hierarchy, depending on what kind of tool you're bringing in, because that will improve the success rate of the technology that you're bringing in. Learn from other departments and clients. By other departments, I mean it can be your billing team, it can be your IT team, it can be your administrative staff, right? Everybody comes from a different experience, and they might have a better way to do something that you're doing right now. They might be aware of technology they may have used at their earlier organization that serves your purpose right off the bat. And it's important to be open to suggestions from not only lawyers but from all members of the law firm or the organization you're working with. Um, Make it personal. Now, which is basically going back to talking about, how much can you tell them why they should care? How much support can you give to them? How much are you culturally trying to push the change? And the last is making it mandatory, which may sound like a horror show, but this is one of the things that really help drive up adoption. Of course, it cannot come at the cost of, doing all the other things. It cannot be that you make a thing mandatory and then hope that magically adoption is going to happen, because that will never happen. The reason make it mandatory is sitting at the end of the list is because it is the last way to push change on an organizational level. You need to definitely do all of the other things before you make anything mandatory for the lawyers. All right, so this is something that had happened, I think, 1 year back or 2 years back, where a lawyer couldn't turn off the cat filter on Zoom. But the reason I'm using this is to go back to the initial analogy that I used, which is managing lawyers really like herding cats? And very, very honestly, in my conversation over time with a lot of lawyers and younger partners and the newer people coming into the profession, I am 100% sure that lawyers are now no longer cats, right? They're much more dynamic, they're much more open to change, they're much more willing to experiment. Um, and yeah, they're not a cat anymore. I think we can open for questions now.
Thanks, Shreya. We have quite a lot of questions, and there are a few raised hands as well. First, we'll take the questions and then I will go to the raised hands.
Sure.
Okay, so the first question is from Aditi, who is asking, I guess it was a little earlier in your presentation. She's asking, is this all related to knowledge management?
This is not entirely all related to knowledge management. Uh, Knowledge management is basically managing knowledge within an organization, and I'm defining it so that I can answer you better. Is it's not just knowledge that is within the organization in terms of documents or in terms of papers or in terms of past research or whatever. It's also knowledge that exists in all of your minds, right? How am I able to document it? Because let's say a secretary knows what to do when a new client comes in, but none of that is documented, right? It's managing all of the written and tacit information together. But to answer your question, what I'm talking about does not relate only to knowledge management. It relates to overall practice management and just improving how you work as a lawyer, improving the client experience, improving your work product, improving efficiency, all doing all of that while at the same point of time saving costs by using technology better.
Yeah. Thanks, Shreya. The next one is it's about something that you already covered, but again I would like to put it so that you can reiterate it for Abhishek, which is, should a small law firm or an individual lawyer invest in legal tech?
I think I've given you enough reasons to invest in technology generally, right? Uh, and very, very honestly, the longer you wait, right, the difficult it will get to undo your processes, to undo how you work. It's very easy to start on day one, right? On day one, I can have a vision. I know that I want to invest in tech. You may not have all the answers in the first go, but having a bend of mind or to use tech to improve how you're using tech is very, very important. In terms of investment, you may not have to invest anything additionally, like I said, right? You can just use what you already have better. You can just use, for example, Teams better to communicate with clients, or you can just use the very many other tools that exist within the Microsoft ecosystem to improve your client service delivery, to improve your own processes. And it can be something as simple as using Microsoft Outlook better. So for example, a lot of people don't use this function called templates in Outlook, but
Yeah.
templates is so much easier when I need to send out the same kind of email to multiple people. So you can start very, very small, but the bent and the intention should definitely be there.
Sure. That's an interesting point of view. So then Abhijit has a really interesting question, Shreya, which was, going in my mind also. Foreign firms are developing their own legal tech instead of buying other services. Do you see Indian firms doing that same? And the second part of the question is foreign firms are, oh yeah, sorry, it's just a repeat of the same question. Yeah.
Sure. So, developing tech in house is something that is definitely catching up. In fact, at the firm that I work at, we have an entire team of developers that is called the Tech Solutions team, and we are always working to develop bespoke tools. It's mostly because either the tool that is available on the market is extremely expensive because it is something that is not based out of India, or it is because I need something that speaks to my old systems and the new tool on the market is not going to be able to do it. And that's basically that, right? I need something which is hyper specific to my requirements, which is why I'm building out specific tools for my own use case. And to answer your question, yes, Indian law firms have been building out their own tools for a while now. So for example, in news, I think about some months ago, there was this entire news about how Shardul Amarchand Mangadas has created an entire learning and development tool on cloud, which was their own tool. A lot of other law firms are doing multiple things, working with external vendors, building out their own tools. So yeah, that is definitely happening at the moment.
Thanks, Shreya. Moving on to the next question. Nitin is asking, can you put some more light on how to understand your law firm's technology requirements?
Um,
I guess you touched upon, like, reaching out to
yeah.
other lawyer or partners or other employees in your law firm, but how do you kind of establish the process is what I basically think the question is.
Sure. So, think about, like I said, map what you're doing, right? Once you literally sit down with a pen and a paper and sort of draw what are the various steps of a process that you're doing on a daily basis, you will be able to see what is it that I can do, or what part of it can I use technology in. And it's possible that you may not have the expertise to make that decision for yourself. So at those junctures, it may be useful to maybe speak to, maybe you have a software developer friend or a friend who's working in the tech side of things, for something simpler, and they may be able to help you out with it. But also, a lot of times, all of these answers already sit on Google, right? So I can go to Google and be like, how do I improve my timekeeping process? And Google will tell you various ways to actually do this completely free of cost. Or how can I use Outlook better because I'm so heavily reliant on Outlook? Or how can I use Microsoft Word better because I'm so reliant on Microsoft Word? Or how can I use whatever your billing software is? If you're using Tally, then how can I use Tally better? Or how can I make it speak to other systems, right? But nothing will start without you knowing what you're doing day in, day out, right? Mapping those processes, seeing what are the various steps, and then thinking about, oh, maybe I can do this better, or maybe I can do that better. And that's generally how things go.
So it's basically, talking it out and ideating and brainstorming with your team. And
Absolutely, but not doing it without agenda, right? Because a lot of
right.
conversation will happen, but it has to be with agenda. So go talk to your team, get everybody in the room who works on, let's say, private equity transactions. Get those 5 people in a room. Ask them to map out the process end to end, right? When I say end to end, it needs to be the client comes in, tells you something, and you have a matter, to the eventual part where the bill is realized and you send like the final tax invoice or whatever it is, like a bill receipt, whatever you send to the client, and the last conversation you have with them. Map that entire thing. And not only map it from the lawyer perspective, map it from an administrative perspective, map it from an IT perspective, map it from like a knowledge management perspective. Have everything sitting together. And that's where you'll be able to see, oh, can improve this, can remove this process, can use technology better here, can maybe use my document management system better here whenever I'm talking about the KM perspective. So just do that entire exercise and then have like a much more directed conversation. That's one. Second way to do it is to uh, pick up a part of that entire process. Let's say I'm looking at only due diligence, right? And let's say I'm looking at a specific kind of red flag due diligence, or whatever it is. Speak to your associates or speak to your lawyers, see what they think can be done better. Because a lot of times, the way it's being done is very, very disparate, right? We start using Excel sheets to take data on, but the report is generated on Word, which is very frustrating. Speak to them, understand what is it that they're struggling with, and then try to find solutions.
Thanks, Shreya. So the next question is on billing model. David is asking, do you think time-based billing model will survive or will tech disrupt this model?
So that's a very, very controversial question to ask. I think I'll answer it in a fairly diplomatic way, which is to say that if you look at the stats, there is a clear shift from the traditional time-based model. More and more people are now choosing to use the alternative fee arrangement, which is usually like a breakup of a little bit of billing, a little bit of fixed fee. There may be a cap, there may not be a cap. So that is definitely happening, and that's definitely a shift. A lot of law firms in India, I know for a fact, are also trying to really push the value-based billing model. Um, so that kind of shift is also happening because now clients and are much more sophisticated. They understand what value lawyers are really bringing in. Uh, so that kind of shift is definitely happening, but I don't see it completely going away in the next 10, 15 years for sure.
Interesting. Thanks, Shreya. So, it again, this question you have covered it, but again, for I guess Shankar joined a little later, and that's why he's asking, what basic tech solutions would you recommend for a small litigation chamber?
Start again, right? Start very, very small. Think about how are your documents being kept, right? How are they being digitized? How are they being saved together? How are they being accessed remotely? And again, you don't need to buy anything else because like Microsoft does everything in itself. Like you have SharePoint, you have all of that, so you can do that. The second issue you will probably have in a small litigation chamber is timekeeping. How is time being kept? So that is another solution you should definitely look at. The third solution you will mostly want to look at is how are bills being done? How are you sending bills to client? How are clients paying you? How are you paying your counsel? How is all of that information speaking to each other? So another thing you need to look at is to probably find a billing and a time solution. But none of these solutions should be separate, right? Because your timekeeping needs to speak to your billing and your billing needs to speak to your timekeeping. And both of these need to speak to your client or your counsel eventually, who you're sending bills. So just like I said, right? Like have a clearer vision, have a broader vision. Don't buy technology on an ad hoc basis. Ensure that everything sort of sits together and speaks to each other. Otherwise, you will spend a lot of money on different kinds of technologies and then it will all become like shelf technology at the end of the day.
Thanks, Shreya. I don't think we have any questions. However, Anik has raised his hand. I'm just going to allow his mic so that he can ask a question. Anik, I'm going to allow you to speak. So please go ahead and ask a question. Anik, are you there?
I think he's locked out or
Yeah.
has dropped off. Yeah.
Okay. So that's it, Shreya. It was a very good session, and I'm so glad that a few of the participants here asked the questions that I was really thinking about asking. So yeah, Shreya, please give us some closing comments if you have, and then we can probably leave it.
I think the only thing I want to say is that lawyers have very bad reputation for not being tech friendly,
Right.
or for not looking at technology the way they need to. That is definitely not the case anymore. And very, very honestly, if you tell a lawyer that, hey, you need to work for 60 hours with like a pen and paper, or you can work for 20 hours with technology, they will always choose the 20 hours with technology. So that's just one of the major shifts that have definitely happened over the time. And yeah, I just really hope that we can keep the conversation going because as and when more lawyers use more technology, you will also have better technology on the market. And that shift clearly needs to happen now.
Agreed. Agreed, Shreya. Thank you so much, Shreya, and thank you so much everyone who attended the webinar. And we look forward to your participation, and we look forward to hosting you again in one of our upcoming webinars, Shreya. Thank you. Thank you
Great.
so
Thanks. Thanks for having me. Thank you, everybody.